Welcome to the Sleeping Barber Podcast.
It's time for the post-pod.
Post-pod.
With your hosts, Mark and Vassilis.
It's a very sing-song. We were jibber-jabbering the other day, and now we're sing-songing today.
I mean,
like it.
I don't know if I could do ballads very well, but kind of channeling.
You could pull out a Greek ballad.
No one would know the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, post-pod for Steve from Zappi.
What a cool platform. Yeah.
It is a cool platform. Yeah, it's a cool platform. We talked a little bit we'll talk about a few things. AI's role in transforming market research. We'll cover some of that. We'll cover the agility that it's giving people like platforms like his. And then balancing creativity and data. I think we were some of the three big things we want to chat about. But,
yeah.
Just in terms, one of the things we talked to him about was that idea around getting close to the customer. And everybody is talking about how you got to get close to the customer.
Totally.
And then especially when times are bad, you have this pressure going, okay, well, show me sales now. Show me what you're doing today. Give me the return tomorrow. And so you don't have the tools necessarily to understand the market. If there is a change in the market and things are going bad, there's obviously something that's created that, but you don't know what it is necessarily because the tools aren't as responsive as the market changes. So I thought that was really interesting just in terms of how you can understand and keep on top of things better with tools like that.
Well, I think the magic word was responsive. Many tools are definitely not responsive in a traditional MarTech stack, et cetera. It's always after the fact, or you're kind of playing catch up. It's retroactive, where we know we need to become better on the predictive side. And how do we make sure that we're using the insights to inform tomorrow, et cetera. So platforms like Zappi is something that allows these advertisers to actually accelerate some of that. And I know the first one, like you touched on, AI's role in transforming market research. We talked about synthetic data, or you did actually with Evidenza specifically, right?
Yeah.
And seeing what they're doing on that side. And this whole notion of leveraging synthetic data a lot more is actually allowing us to accelerate not the learnings, but the way to approach things like segmentation, getting in front of the right people to get those approvals that you need, instead of going through the bigger rounds of research that you have to do, which are still important, by the way. I'm not negating any of that, but in the world where speed trumps everything, really, this makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, another one too would be Tracksuit, where they've got real-time data that they're pulling in. Yeah, and Zappi's, they're not exactly, I don't think, competitors. They're all applied differently, but just the idea of AI, even synthetic data, you can just pull. I've done a whole bunch of these, just market research, doing a survey and then asking, say, ChatGPT or whatever the LLM is to give me answers. It's not accurate because they're not real people, but the idea of being able to get information to help guide some kind of decision making. Otherwise, you're just going blind.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think it's helpful, but maybe also gut check to do some qualitative research just to figure out if you're on the right track before making big commitments. To hallucination.
Yeah. Oh, I think the LLM's hallucinating again. But if at the very least it helps generate the right conversation, so then you go down the path, okay, let's get the right research under it. Let's see if this hypothesis is correct. I think that's the important. And if you're using that this way, I think it serves as an accelerator. But let's get into this. So the first topic I think we really want to highlight. So AI's role in transforming market research. I think obviously off the bat, automation and speed are the biggest, are two of the biggest things that kind of come to mind. Cost efficiency is probably a close second. But also, I don't want to say it's overlooked, but it has to be enhanced data analysis, right? The speed around that, the type of information you can get, the conversational nature of some of these tools that allow you to kind of going back and forth, go a little bit deeper on some of the insights. I think those three things alone is how AI is helping, dare I use the term disrupt, but rethink market research as a whole. Yeah,
it's a good point, especially when it comes to personal biases, right? You can find an answer in any data set that you want. And so I think that's another interesting component of this. Just the general idea, not necessarily specific to Zappi, but generally to all these kinds of tools. You can ask AI to look at the data and here's my analysis, and then go, give me 5 different opinions. Tell me the CEO's opinion. Tell me a layman's opinion.
Exactly.
Tell me like the CFO's opinion, or be an expert level data analyst. Pretend like you're Byron Sharp and, like, how would he see it? You know what I mean? Like you can use these tools to model different opinions and then form a decision based on that. So it provides like a sounding board. So you're not just interpreting data on your own.
Absolutely. And don't forget, Steve did highlight something specific. It was on the creative effectiveness side, right? And I think, again, I know we're both big believers on a lot of the effectiveness principles and, how that all comes together from a creative perspective to a media perspective. But that for me is also a really big reason why we need to be looking at these tools a lot differently to help inform our day-to-day.
It just occurred to me, like I was having a conversation yesterday with someone about AI, and they're working on a presentation to talk about how they're implementing AI in the organization. And so there's lots of things you can do, and this is an example of it. But what occurred to me is, if you start from a point of view of how can AI help me do this task, rather than what is AI going to do overall, it's not, I think to think about AI as a whole, like as a entity on its own, is more challenging than to think of it as like Copilot or like your sidekick or whatever, where everything you're doing could be augmented by AI. So it's more a matter of like putting it into everything you're doing so that you have an understanding of what it's good at, what it's not good at. And then, because we've never had this tool before. And so rather than thinking, it can do these things, it's a matter of just saying, what can it do? And then starting from that point and going, okay, well, here's how I'm using it. Here's how it's benefiting. Here's where it's not benefiting.
I think I was in a conversation with, it was with Microsoft. It was late last year. It was during one of the Tell Us Digi days that we do. And they were on stage and they were presenting to us. What was interesting at the time, and I don't think it never really occurred to me, it's like, you have to stop thinking about AI as its own entity. You have to think about how it's your own personal assistant on the things that you do from a day-to-day perspective. So like even the reframing on how we think about AI as not as like a distance, an endpoint, right? It's like, no, let's bring it along right now. And like, there's so many meetings that I'm in today. It's like, hey, are we transcribing this? There's a lot of takeaways in this meeting. Let's make sure like we're capturing everything. So it's naturally now becoming more and more of a tool that we need to be using intuitively. And then again, it comes back to things like now applying it to the business sense. Think about market research, think about creative effectiveness, think about all these different areas that it can play a significant role in shaping strategy, which I think is what at the end of the day, we're trying to do better.
Yeah. Let's go on to the agility in marketing through rapid testing kind of idea that Steve brought up. What's your take on that part?
I think it's like rooted in accelerated decision-making. I think for me, this is what it comes down to. I don't want to say I was a skeptic or it was something that I felt that, we needed more time to mature. But think about the last 2 years that we've been talking about this and where we are today. These tools have matured so quickly to becoming almost like business critical, not mission critical, business critical. So accelerated decision-making, looking ways to bolster our creativity. We talked about creative effectiveness just earlier. But coming back to something that Steve talked about, a consumer-centric approach. Like all of these things play into this being quicker, more agile, and making that decision-making, having it accelerated is something that for me, it's just like, it's a no-brainer.
I think, the getting to a draft is so much easier.
Yes.
Right. It doesn't mean that it's good. It just means you're at a draft and a starting point, right? Like I think all of us, no matter what we're doing in terms of making decisions in any kind of marketing, any business scenario, but any kind of decisions you're making, you kind of have a couple of points in your head. You're like, oh, we should check on this. We should look at this. I'd consider this. I really want to do that, but not that. You know what I mean? And so, but you just don't have the time to fully bake all those things together and synthesize the information. And so to me, what I've noticed I've been doing a lot is just in terms of agility and rapid testing is running these it's like scenario planning almost.
Exactly.
Like game planning and going, okay, here's an idea. Run a scenario against this. What do you think? And then run a scenario against, here's the other idea, competing idea. Take 10 different ideas and iterate off of that and put them all together and do a like create a better idea out of all of this.
You could literally just kind of dumb it down into what you could call like strategic flexibility. Like think about in the meetings that you're in, either at the board level, executives, etc. Everyone will have an idea, or will have like, hey, have we thought about this? Should we be considering this instead? All of these permutations, all of these ideas can actually be run through the program to kind of get some insights on the direction that you want to go. So you're basically taking in all the feedback and coming back with a draft. Again, it's a draft. That's okay. At that stage, it's fine. And I think it makes for probably great brainstorming sessions as well.
Totally.
The last one that we wanted to touch on was, sorry, give me a sec here.
Balancing creativity and data and advertising.
Well, I don't know if we need anything more on that and how important creative plays, but yeah, kick us off on this.
I think I mentioned it a while back. There was a workshop that I had run as part of the Marketing Association, the Calgary Marketing Association. So the project was we're going to do a case study. Everybody's going to get the same brief. The objective at the end of this 2.5 hours was to come up with a piece of creative. And we split up the groups, and one was just the vibe marketers, one was just the traditional marketing people, and then one was the evidence-based people. And so really what that meant was they were just using different types of prompts.
Sure.
Based on the category they're in. And at the end of the 2.5 hours, everybody came up with, it was amazing. Like everybody came up with really cool stuff, like fully baked presentations and jingles and videos. And it was really cool to see what they did in such a short period of time. But one of the big ahas for me at the end of it was like, and I don't know if you, in a blind taste test kind of analysis, I don't know if you would have been able to see which one had come from the evidence-based group versus the traditionalist group versus the vibe group. But definitely what we'd realized is that there's the explanation as to why you did things would be more helpful in in the evidence-based group as opposed to the vibe group or the traditional group. Sure. The other part was, in a very short period of time, probably none of them would have been approved by a client.
Right.
And because they weren't necessarily on brand. I mean, part of it was they didn't have the full brand book and all that kind of stuff to work from. But my point around that is to say, just because there's data to produce stuff doesn't mean that it's necessarily approvable or correct.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then thing when recently I had a client that I was working with on, say, Facebook ads, and this ad is going through the Facebook algorithm cheaper, lower CPM, CPR, whatever, than other ones. But it might not be the ad that you want to have that has the right message in it. You know what I mean? So then are you letting the data just dictate your decision making, or are you intentionally saying, no, this is the message we need to zero in on. This is the branding elements that we need to zero in on. Or are you just letting the data or the AI do the things for you?
Yeah, no, I think that's yes, I completely agree with that. The other thing that I know Steve's touched on a little bit was like the iterative improvement that can happen, right? And I think that's, again, kind of like the game changing why we're looking at platforms like Zappi, but also balancing the art and the science. Basically, it's what you were just talking about. Like you want to have that pendulum, because like if the fact that none of that work that came out of the test could ever really go client facing, that also shows you where a lot of these tools actually belong right now is in that iterative stage, where we want to make sure we're testing as much as possible, which is also another side. Like, how do we make sure as marketers we're continuing to leverage these tools to help us get to a point of reference a lot quicker than what it has been to date, where it goes through the process of standing up a campaign from the brief right to the execution side, depends on the size of the campaign, can span months, right? So if this helps us take 3-4 weeks off, you should be doing it.
Yeah, and I think, we talked a little bit before about some of the ideas around having different perspectives. And I think having those different perspectives from a creativity angle is kind of interesting, because you can generate so much.
Totally.
What's the right word? Like ideas or platforms or creative opportunities in a very short period of time, and then build off of ones that you like. And so I think it's fast, but it doesn't always mean it's good. So there's like that human intervention part, which is ultimately coming back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is it's a sidekick. Yeah. It's not a replacement.
It's cool tech. I have to say, like even after in preparation for the episode, obviously we took some time to understand like the Zappi platform and stuff like that. But I found myself even after the fact spending more time to see, okay, how can this actually play a larger role from a strategic perspective as well. So I would encourage everyone to take some time and brush up on it. I think there's definitely some great use cases there, especially if you're, you're looking to increase your speed to market, looking at things like creative effectiveness, but also being consumer centric. It's kind of like a no-brainer.
Yeah, as you're saying that, it just reminded me, like I was looking at membership association software, which who knew that it even existed? Like, turns out it
blew my mind.
Yeah, and so I ended up getting some for the association I'm with. But I think this is an interesting, like Zappi's kind of in this new category of software. Like you might not even know that this kind of stuff exists.
It's a great point.
Right? Like there's so many different kinds of opportunities that are out there with different platforms. And yeah, it's cool to see what they're producing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Steve, if you're listening, thank you so much for spending time with us back in Cannes. It was great to catch up with you and obviously learn what you and the team over there at Zappi are continuously working on. Really appreciate those insights.
Yeah. All right. And with that, V, thanks to everyone for listening. Well, I'll see you soon, but thanks for everyone else for keeping us in your ears.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks, everybody.